Hi there, I'm Ben Jones. Welcome back to Dukascopy TV. South Korean GDP growth has met analysts' expectations and increased to 3.9%. Rebecca Jackson-Young joins me on the line now to discuss the current state of the economy. So Rebecca, if we can talk initially about the GDP figure, as many expected it's increased, nearly reaching 4% growth. What's contributing to this current expansion?
Yeah, like you said, almost 4% is pretty good for South Korea. And of course, it's up from 3.7 in the fourth quarter. Three things, I guess, contributing to that. Private consumption was up 2.6%, and exports of goods and services also up by 4.6%. Now, both of those, the pace of acceleration has increased from the fourth quarter. Investment is actually, has grown the strongest in the first quarter of this year. I think it was 6.2%, which is pretty healthy indeed, although it does reflect a deceleration from the previous quarter last year. I think it's important to point out the difference, of course, between year-on-year and quarter-on-quarter. So while it was strong in year-on-year terms, it actually stayed at around 0.9% compared with the previous quarter, and that is unchanged from the fourth quarter of last year. So it's not quite so much a rosy picture, it's still pretty good, but it does suggest that the momentum in the economy isn't quite as good as you'd expect it to be.
Now, the finance minister has outlined the Fed tapering as almost a win-win situation, stating that on one hand, South Korea could see exports increase, and on the other hand, tapering could lead to rising interest rates in the US and then other countries. What are your thoughts on this? Do you feel that tapering is likely to have a positive impact for South Korea?
Certainly, to date, any negative impact of tapering has been muted in South Korea. Of course, the won depreciated in mid-2013, but has since basically stabilized. I think some of that, of course, is related to Japanese quantitative easing, but on the whole, the negative impact has been muted. The argument that tapering could help the economy, there is some merit in that. I think it's worth pointing out, though, that the Fed is actually still injecting liquidity into the global economy. It's just that the amount it injects every month is less and less. And so this, of course, does mean that things like that places like South Korea will see less inflows. Indeed, I think it was in the fourth quarter last year, portfolio investment flows fell. But we don't actually expect the Fed to lift policy rates for some time yet. I think it's 2015. We expect them to start raising them. And in the meantime, there are other factors at play in South Korea, which mean that we actually think that the currency will remain pretty strong in the next few years, which, in theory has a negative impact on the export sector. So quantitative easing in Japan will probably keep the currency strong. And of course, domestic interest rates in South Korea will probably be lifted, which again means that the currency will probably remain pretty strong. I think that, of course, tapering indicates that the US economy is healthier, and that could, in the longer term, see an increased demand for South Korean goods. But in the medium term, we think that the currency will probably remain pretty strong, which in theory will have a negative impact on the export sector.
And finally, another discussion recently has been the increasing long-term foreign debt, which has more than tripled in the past decade. Although it's been downplayed by the minister, do you feel that it's a risk to South Korea's economy?
Yeah, definitely the levels are really very high. I think it was $303 billion in 2013, the stock of long-term foreign debt, that is. And I think his argument is that it reflects an expanding economy and it reflects investor confidence in South Korea. And I think that there is some merit to that. Certainly if you look at the profile of the long-term foreign debt, a lot of it is private sector. So the argument that it reflects investor confidence definitely, I think, has some merit. The ultimate point, though, is that such high levels of debt suggest that South Korea is living beyond its means effectively. And that is a problem if the country doesn't grow as quickly. But we basically think that the economy will continue to expand fairly healthily, which means that it will have the means to finance its debt. So it shouldn't be a major problem for the economy.
Rebecca, thank you very much for joining me today. That's all from me for now. Thanks for watching, and click back tomorrow for plenty of updates on the final day of the trading week. Goodbye.